Welcome everyone, and thank you for taking the time to look into our time for teams and how we have successfully implemented it at Hempel and other customers. I hope everybody see my screen. I'll just go here to the next slide. So we prepared a little agenda here where first I will talk a little bit about Projectum, who are we and what do we do. Then we'll take a little survey we'll send around so you can say what you would like to hear about. And this will give us input to the next point on the agenda, which is Andrew, who will be walking through the challenges he faced when implementing time registration in Hempel, the thoughts he made around it before starting the implementation, and the thought process of selecting a tool. Then we'll take a look into Time for Teams, the application, and I will do a live demo of Time for Teams, and then we're ready for Q&A. So if you have any questions, we'll be ready to answer them there. And if you have any questions along the way during the presentation, please write them in the chat and we will try and answer them as soon as possible. So first off, a little bit about Projectum. We're a company we've been in business for almost 15 years now. As you can see here, we got a couple of references with a lot of customers that we work with, both within portfolio management, within time registrations, resource management, and other areas. We have been nominated as a Microsoft Partner of the Year 5 times, and we've been the runner-up 3 of those times. Very short around the way we go to a new task when we get out to new customers. We typically start at the strategy and execution level and start to identify what is it actually our tools is aiming to do. And with that, we dive into how do we do it with work management, in this case, time for teams, where we go in and analyze what is it actually the benefit the organizations get from our solutions. And then, of course, we also look into people management, what kind of people are needed for it, who is impacted, who is the stakeholders, and then, of course, a lot into data quality, because one thing is actually getting people on board, and another thing is that they continuously to follow up and do this, provide valuable data. We have a few products. One of them is Power PPM, which is handling project and portfolio management and planning of projects. Then we have Team Planner, which is our resource management tool. And then we have Time for Teams that we're talking around today, which handling all follow-up on projects, follow-up on time registrations of all the work that has been done. And then we also have Presented, which is a PowerPoint and Word exporter tool, where we can get all this nice data that we are collecting into some nice PowerPoints and Word documents. And then we have the Power Hub, which is an enterprise application for managing data and making sure that everything works across. So before I hand the word over to Andrew, we'd like you to take a short survey where you can answer what you would like to hear about the experience Andrew have made and we have made together with Andrew. And to take the survey, you can go to, you can click the link into the chat that Jonathan will be pasting shortly. Or you can go, if you're on the mobile phone, you can go to menti.com and type in the code 5800020. Just give you a minute, and then please answer the survey in there. And it'll probably take around 20 seconds or to a minute before I see the answers here. And basically what we would like you to ask is, what do you find most interested about experience? Would you like most to hear about? We have a scoping and leadership buy-in, the process of actually getting somebody from management to tell the organization why this is important. We have change management. What did we do in order to roll out the application? Getting people on board, both from an early stage, but also after go live, and getting people to continuously work with the application. Then we have reporting and BI. What did we do? How do we talk to management around reporting? What is it they really need to get out of the tool? What are the BI needs from the organization? I can see people are starting to answer. And of course, we have launch and rollout. So what did we do at the actual launch state? How did we roll it out? Great. I will give it some time. Continue to get the polls in here. I can see change management is the most interesting topic right now. I will update you, Andrew, if there's any changes to this. And then I will hand the word over to Andrew.
Sure. Give me one moment. I will. Okay. So everyone, thank you for, as Christian said and gave a really nice introduction. My slides don't have the same kind of slick animations that the Projectum ones do, but I think what I can maybe be most helpful with is talking to you a bit about Hempel's experience with time for teams, and also a little bit about how we approach it. And from what I could tell from the survey, it sounded like people were very interested in Christian, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of the change management and reporting and launch aspects, almost more sort of the back end of the process, and how we actually use it in the organization. So I'll be sure to focus on those. I'll give a little more weight to those during the presentation. And then please feel free to ask questions via the chat. And then if the Projectum guys, if there are relevant questions as I go through, please feel free to chime in as we do this.
Yes, one little correction before we start. More and more people are getting answering the survey, and I think scoping and leadership buy-in is actually of very high interest.
Ah, okay. So the front and back ends. The middle part's the boring part then. Got it. Okay. We can do that. So let me give just a brief introduction to Hempel for those of us who don't know, who aren't familiar with us. So Hempel is, we've been around for over 100 years, and we are a supplier of coatings is our main business, and we are active across a number of different segments within the coating industry. We think about it for decorative coatings, which are coatings for basically home interiors and business interiors; protective coatings, which are coatings that particularly have industrial applications; maritime coatings, which comprise mainly coatings for ships and vessels, primarily fouling and fouling protection coatings, as well as container and yacht coatings as well. We're active in over 80 countries. We employ over 6,000 people, and have been really aggressively expanding. I think we've tripled in size over the last 15 years, and we now have our new strategy set to double once again in size by the end of 2025. And we're foundation owned, which we're very proud of here at Hempel, because I know that one of the reasons why myself and a lot of my colleagues are very excited about where we work is not only because we get a chance to work for a thriving business, but also because we work for a business that is foundation owned and has a big hand in supporting a lot of cultural and humanitarian endeavors across the world, and particularly in the area of early childhood education is a particular area where Hempel is very involved. Maybe I do have some slick animation. I sold myself short. We're active in, like I said, 80 countries around the world. We have 28 factories globally. We employ over 700 advisors that actually help our customers to apply our coating. So we really are active. We really are active globally, and it's a global team that we work with to get things done. And the R&D organization in particular, which is going to be the focus of this discussion, operates in many of these locations as well. So part of what we had to do with time and the time rollout was also give consideration to different countries, different employment regimes and methods of employment law, as well as languages. So it wasn't as though it was just a small thing to do. I think our R&D organization is now actually closer to 400 people than 350. But let's start with some background, and we'll talk a bit about scoping, as that was one of the things that people were most interested to hear about. So we rolled out Time in Hempel specifically for our R&D organization. So it's not a global platform. It is specifically for our R&D group, and R&D at Hempel functions primarily to develop new products and services, as well as provide deep technical support both to our customers and to other areas of Hempel, both for customer support and operation support, as well as sales support. And the reason the original impetus for the project was we have a large group of people doing R&D across many different projects and many different disciplines of things that people do. And by that I mean, so a number of our people develop new products, a number of our people provide customer support, a number of our people are in charge of maintaining our existing product portfolio, and managing our cost profile, providing support to factories. And so there's a Hempel R&D isn't just solely making new products. So there are a number of different jobs we're tasked to do, and it's actually quite difficult to look across the group and get a sense of where we actually investing our time, both from a project and an activity perspective. And so the reason why we were interested in Time is that we thought that it would be a good way for us to manage our resource spend better. We had tried in the past to run surveys and ask people at specific points in time where they spent their time, and that was, I guess, somewhat useful, but we don't think it showed us the whole picture, and also only gave us kind of one snapshot in time. And so rather than continuing to do this over and over again, we decided to implement Time because there were a number of sites that were already doing time registration for a variety of reasons. And so this was both a way that we could unify that, as well as hopefully deliver a better experience to people that were already doing it, and then give our managers better visibility into where we're actually investing our resources. So when it came to scoping and buy-in, I think some of the important things that that were key for us is that, number one, this wasn't a performance management platform. This is not used to measure how much time people spend at work. This is not used to try and see, are individuals spending enough time on certain tasks? That's not what this is used for. This is used at a department and aggregate level primarily to again better manage resource spend. So I think that was important to scope, is that's what this is for. And then the second thing that was important when it came to scoping was to get leadership buy-in, was to make it easy. The idea is that we want to make it both easy to develop. It was fairly fast to roll out. Christian, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if we count the actual months where we were working on it in a focused way, we rolled it out in the space of, I think, less than 3 months from start to finish. It was quite quick, and so the fact that we could keep it simple and easy, both for users and for the business to digest, I think was also quite important. And then the third thing was making sure that it was clear what we were going to get out of it at the end from a reporting and BI standpoint, and the decisions that we could make more proactively as a result of it, right? Time registration in itself doesn't add value, but the decisions that can come out of it is what ends up adding value. So I think by those three things, we were able to convince our executives that this was worth the investment. And so that was those are my tips on scoping, and I'm happy to talk more about that if there are more questions about it. So rollout, as I said, this is the chart on the right isn't exactly this was actually, we had to take a pause in the middle of the rollout for a few different reasons, but this is just sort of even the back half of the rollout. But you can see even from this chart that, basically once the pilots were done, we, in the course of a month, got to a point where we were live, and users were using it on day one, starting in basically the beginning of December. Before the pilots, we tried to take both a design-centric and agile combination approach to get this done. So we started by understanding kind of user needs. need finding, and then after that we ideated and sort of sketched the product with Projectum, which we were constantly testing with users on our end, which was in this case quite easy because the users were internal Hempel employees, so it was very easy for us to get feedback on how the versions were looking as we iterated. Once there was a beta version ready, then we conducted a small 30-person pilot, which was both important from a development standpoint to get feedback, but then also really helped when we rolled out because we had 15% of the R&D population that was already exposed to the product and knew how to use it quite well. So it helped to have some super users spread across the globe already. And then after the pilot, we rolled it out pretty quick. I would say that, and I can get into more detail about the launch and change management bit here a bit later. But we rolled it out over the course of 3 to 4 weeks, and we used a combination both of kind of outbound communications, but then also self-serve support via the platform, which I think Christian can roll through in a bit. To give, we really wanted to empower users to learn how to do this. We think that if it's something that every single manager has to teach every single new employee the details of how to use the system in a 30-minute introductory meeting for everyone that joins the group, it was going to be really difficult to have it live and breathe in the organization. So we really tried to create tools so people could learn how to use it themselves, and we're pretty proud of actually of how that's gone. I'll speed through this really quickly because I think this might have been one of the I didn't see this jumping to the top of the survey, but some thoughts on development best practices. So we used both prototyping and prototyping. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, before you continue, we had a question here. Charlotte asking, which questions did you identify was the most important ones? So I think this was referred back to what you just spoke about.
Questions regarding the can you clarify questions regarding what specifically?
Yeah, so let me see here. Let's see if she clarifies the question, but actually she gave another question. Which decisions did you aim to take based on the time registration?
That's a good question. I think there were. I'll talk about 2 different types of decisions at 2 different levels. The first was quite clear-cut decisions on which projects we want to invest in and whether the investment we're making in our current project portfolio is aligned with the value that we think we were getting from these projects. So that's number one. Christian can show you some details maybe in the demo, but part of time is that we can log time spent directly to projects that we have in our project portfolio that have a lot of different BI attached to them, including the development time, NPV, all of that. And so part of it is just on a constant basis making sure that we are spending time on the projects that we think will yield the most value. And so it's a tool for helping us kind of rationalize our portfolio from that standpoint. Hempel, like many companies, I would imagine, has a long tail of projects that make up its R&D portfolio, and kind of actively managing that is super important. So that's one level. And I think then the second level was for the remainder of projects, which are cut across more general activities like people management, training and learning, other forms of business support that aren't necessarily directly linked to projects, but more kind of ongoing operations, helping us as a business try and understand, okay, are we investing enough in things like training? Are our managers having to spend too much, or are they not spending enough time managing and developing their teams? Do we spend time in specific areas of support where we need more resources, right? And so I think both at the project level, but then also at kind of more the aggregate level, we use it to inform decisions on where we should allocate resources.
Thanks, Andrew. And just to clarify the other question, she says that you mentioned that you started to identify which questions time registration should reveal the answer to. questions. I think that was what she referred it to.
So I think what I meant by that was specifically kind of what management, what questions we wanted to answer through time. So almost similar to the answer I just gave is, what issues did we have specifically with our visibility into how we spend and allocate our resources, and what questions could the time registration tool help us answer? So things like helping us ensure that we're spending time in the right projects and that we as a group are placing the resources where we have the greatest need and can get the greatest value out of our other activities like support, training, and all those other aspects. So I think they were actually quite similar.
Yeah.
Those answers.
Yeah. Thank you. You can move on.
Cool. So I don't know how much experience the audience has with prototyping and prototyping. I'm sure maybe you've heard the words, but in general, prototyping is essentially sort of mocking up what you think the user experience should look like and trying to create a facsimile of a product and then testing it with the users. We did this, which you can kind of see my fantastic artwork here on the right, in a couple of different workshops where we ran this through with users here in R&D to get a sense of what they would like out of the product. And then we also did prototyping workshops where once we took those designs and then actually had a kind of a working version of the software, we tested that as well. So we tested a lot, and that I think kind of helped the final product be quite well accepted off the bat. Like any software development process, keeping a prioritized backlog of high priority changes was also pretty critical, right? None of this is going to be 100% right when you launch it, and I think that's okay. The Projectum guys have been very collaborative with us in helping to think through and organize and prioritize those as they come through. That was pretty key. And overall, I mentioned this earlier, is just try and keep it simple. Honestly, if I could go back and do it again, I would probably even simplify it even more, the stuff we did. I think time registration, depending on, again, what your end use for it is something that the simpler you keep it, the better, because it's very easy for you to think about all the different features and categories and things that you should have. But when you actually start using it from a BI standpoint, what you find is that, you probably could have simplified it even further than you did. So on to reporting, I think there were some questions about this. I won't be able to show you specifically what we at Hempel have in reporting because just because it's proprietary information, but I can talk to you about it, and then maybe Christian can show you an example if he's got one later. So in general, we use Power BI to manage the data coming out of time, and all managers across R&D have access. So again, it's something where there's not like a team sitting centrally analyzing this data. We have tools that basically anybody with half an hour or an hour of playing around with Power BI can learn how to use. And then we ask our managers to use the tool to get their own insights, right? And essentially the tool is set up such that we break kind of down our two areas. One, specific projects we're making investments in. And then the second area is just the general other non-project categories that people can record time to. So we have a number of different reports. We have sort of a dashboard that says, okay, at an aggregate, where are people spending all their time? And then you can break that down by specific business segments. You can break that down even by different groups within the business. So different departments, different locations, different periods of time, so that if you have a question about, okay, I'm concerned this particular group in my Chinese lab is spending more time on innovation when they really should be spending more time on product support, for example, you can drill into that, right? And you can get a sense of where people are spending their time. Again, not in an effort to again, performance manage, but more in an effort to say, okay, is this something that we as managers need to address, to say, okay, this team needs to make sure that it shifts its focus away from innovation into project support, if that's what what's necessary. So again, it's very much driven by business need rather than by just the need to have people log time so we can have clarity for clarity's sake. Yep, and then change management. So we talked a bit about there's sort of a launch and change management bit that I think also came kind of high in the survey. So I'll talk a bit about that. So when it comes to launch, I think there are two things that we were really good at. There's a number of things we, no launch is perfect. There's a number of things that I'm sure we could have been better at, but things that we did really good at was we told people change was coming early. So I think maybe even 2 months before launch, our head of R&D sent an announcement that this is a project that's coming that people can expect. And then a month before launch, they got another similar email. And then 2 weeks before launch, they got an email with all of the details of how it's going to work and FAQs and instructions on how to use it. And I think at that point, we even gave people early access to the tool, which was pretty key, right? So we gave people a chance to poke around before day one started and people had to start using the tool. So I think it maybe even midway through November, anybody could have gone into the platform and tried to see how it worked. And then that helped because come December, basically we had, I think, well over 90 or 95% usage in the first couple of weeks. So communicate early, communicate often, I guess, is one. And then the second thing is, like I mentioned earlier, give people the self-service tools they need to figure it out. We had one of our users create a introductory video. So rather than having to just read another instruction manual about how to use another platform, we tried to make it a little more engaging by using video content, which we were really happy with, and I think also helped people feel like, oh, I can learn how to use this pretty easy. That was sort of on the launch side of things. Our super users also helped. I was sending communications to them and asking for help to encourage people locally. Our pilot super users we had also strategically kind of placed in different places around the globe, so that if somebody in North America or somebody in Guangzhou had a question, they could ask somebody down the hall for tips rather than feeling like they needed to submit a support ticket. Delegation to managers is also super important. Frankly, there's one thing we probably could have been clear about is this, because I still talk to managers today that are not totally clear on how it works and what they're accountable for. But this should not be one team's job to manage and make sure people are using, right? That's pretty difficult to ask of anybody. So what we made clear is that this is an easy to use tool, both from a usage standpoint and also BI standpoint. And so individual managers are accountable for learning about the tool, learning how to use it, learning about the BI, and then making sure their teams actively log time. This was rolled out in partnership with our digital team. I think this is fairly standard for most companies when launching new digital tools these days, but making sure that it is a joint project led by the business, but then with, I would say, about a 50-50 amount of support from the digital team to not just roll the software out, but make sure that it fits in with the rest of our software ecosystem, that there's no issues with security, that the user experience is of a high level of quality. We were also, I think, lucky because we had a number of people even on the R&D business side here that had software experience. So it was we spoke very fluently with our digital team, so that was helpful. And then maintain post-launch communications. This is super important, and this is actually probably one of the things that we're at Hempel kind of needing to work on now, is maintaining engagement with post-launch communications, because what we found is that I don't think this is unexpected, but there was a very large and good amount of usage to start with, but it starts to tail off after a month. And so making sure that you continue to remind managers about how it's important, continue to drive managers to use it. That's a great way to encourage usage, because if you expect your managers to be pulling reports from the BI tool or to understand how their teams are spending their time, it's the natural thing for them to do is to make sure their teams are using it. So There's no silver bullet with that other than we're finding just elbow grease and then again making sure that your managers are accountable. That's really it. Again, so we've had it now in market for about 3-4 months now. We're really starting to delve into the insights about where we're spending time, so we're finding a lot of uses for it. And I think the next step is for Christian to give a demo. But are there any other questions coming through, guys, that I should answer before we do that?
Yeah, one last question we have here is what business systems do you integrate into? So financial systems, project portfolio, maintenance and operation, etc.
That's a good question. Right now, it is integrated into our project portfolio system, which is we're actually now separately we're in the midst of revamping our project portfolio system as well to be more tightly integrated with our finance systems. But to start with, it was only our project portfolio system. I guess the other thing I should mention is obviously integrated into Teams, and through Teams, Hempel's single sign-on architecture. So it was also linked, I guess, to our HR systems so users don't have to put in a separate login or go through a separate application to log time. It's just native to Teams, and I would say that's actually super important. So it's really those two things, and I think with those two things, that was enough for us at least, because it was easy for users to sign on and do it. They didn't have to put in a separate login, and it was linked to our project portfolio, so we could link it directly to the business cases of the individual projects we're running.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. With that, I think we'll hand it over to Christian to take us through a demo session.
Sure.
Sure.
Thanks a lot, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew. Yes, thanks a lot, Andrew. And just a comment on the integration into financial systems. This is something we actually do quite often with Time for Teams, when you need to push data into financials in order to do your financial processing of the hours that have been timesheeted, both externally and internally. So with that, I will jump right into talking a little bit about Time for Teams and then over to a demo so you can see the actual tool and how it's working. Before we set out to create Time for Teams, there's obviously a lot of time applications out there, time registration applications. We sat down and think, okay, right, how can we do this better, and why do we want to do it better? And a lot of the applications out there didn't do what we actually wanted. We wanted to create something that helped people optimize their time, the individual people who are actually timesheeting, making life easier for them and better for them. And then, as Andrew also mentioned, it should be intuitive to use, really intuitive. So you don't need any training. You can start to use it out of the box, and you don't need to train the entire organization to use this application. Then, of course, it should be a modern app that works everywhere. And this is also why we choose Teams as the main go-to point for using it now. It's not a requirement to have Teams, but if you have Teams, it's the perfect point to start it out from. This should be part of people's everyday workflow, and I will show you in a minute how that works. And then it should be integrated into your existing processes, so you don't have to change processes. You can just configure the process so it fits into the tool. And then, of course, it should identify the cost of projects, be able to roll up to a portfolio level, give managers and executive leadership the answers they need. So there's two entry points when you're using it. There is when you're sitting at your desktop, and then, of course, also on your mobile phone when you're out and about. Now, the mobile interface is optimized for somebody who is not able to search out a lot of tasks and finding stuff. So it just gives you a lot of suggestions, and then you really quickly, in 90% of the cases, we can find the task the user is actually looking for within 2 clicks. In terms of interfaces, then we are interfacing into a lot of systems. What I'm showing today is the interface into Power PPM, which is our own tool, but we also interface into a project for the web, DevOps, SAP, Team Planner, or Microsoft Planner, you know, those tools. So with that, let me just switch right over to Teams. So here you see my Teams application just starting out. And you'll notice here down in the corner, I have a new icon called time. When I click on that, I get right into time for teams and get the current week already loaded, telling me what I need to do. You will see a couple of icons down here, kind of indicating, well, am I done with this week? Is there something I forgot? All of this is, of course, configurable. But right now it's telling me, well, I'm actually green in the first 2 days of the week, and then I'm red. So I can go in here and say, well, I actually did some other work here, and just put 4 hours in, or maybe 2 hours, and then it turns yellow, and then I can do all my time sheeting as such. Now, if there's a task in here that I don't have that I know I should be working on, I can click on the search icon, and then I can say, well, I know it's on the time project I worked, and I know the time is something that has to do with Asia. Then very quickly it will find my task here, and I can even do further filtering, going down and say, well, I know I'm assigned to the task. I can just say, please search all tasks. And adding it in here, I can start to timesheet the last couple of hours on it. Now, I might have a comment to this, so I can just write a comment in here. And when I'm done with my timesheet, I can submit it. And then it's either sent to my manager, or if you have auto approval enabled, the timesheet just gets approved. Now, when the manager receives the timesheet, I am my manager myself, so a couple of people are referring to me. I can go here to the Approve tab, and in here I get an overview of all the people who have timesheeted, the details of what they're timesheeted, and I can see here there's a couple of persons timesheeting 30 hours on Monday. That seems like quite a lot. They can click on it, and I can see the details, what have been timesheeted. I can also see comments if there are any. As in this example, there's some comments on what was actually worked on, which is good for me to know. And then I can go in and say whether I approve this timesheet or I reject it. Now, as a manager, I can also go in and say, well, maybe somebody forgot to timesheet. He is on vacation or similar. Then I got this little button down here in the corner where I can go in and say the people I'm allowed to work for. I can take Esben as an example. Then I can say sign in as Esben, and then I can basically see everything and do everything that Esben does. This is of course configured for a portfolio level, so the managers can log in as their own people and not as other people. When I'm done doing the changes, I can simply go in here and just say log in as myself again, and then it will switch back to my own user. Now, when the manager is done that, we can go into the status overview here to get an overview both from the manager's point of view, but also from across the organization, who have timesheeted, who are missing to timesheet. And if we first look out here on the left side, we can see that most departments have timesheeted. And if I want to look into the details of one of them, I can just click here. And then we'll filter and say, well, Ali actually timesheeted in the future. I can click on Ali and they can see the details of what Ali was supposed to have timesheeted on. If I go up here, when we've done that, the data quality we believe is in place, and we can start to look at the summary of what the hours are actually being spent on. And if I go up here to the summary, I first of all get an overview of where people have been working. So we can see we have quite a lot of people working in Søborg, some in Aarhus, some in the Netherlands, and so on. And then I can see by category what people are working on. I can see 41% of them are working on projects, 20% of other work, some are working on new products, and so on. And if I click here on Søborg, I can see how that looks for Søborg and compare to how it looks for Aarhus. Now, I might want to take a step deeper here and say, all right, what is actually going behind these projects? They can go into the decomposition tree. And this is more of an analysis tool. I can just remove these just to start over. I can see for everything there is 6,000 hours registered. And I might want to say, well, only show me stuff for 2021. And if I go into 2021 and say, please show me the location people have been working, I can see a lot of people are working in Aarhus. Please let me know what tasks they have been working on, or maybe before tasks, we just want to know what project have they been working on. I can see the project here, and then I can go in and see what are the tasks that I've been working on. And of course, can continue to drill down until I got the answers that I need. Now, if I want to know the same thing for another department, I'll just click here, and then it filters everything for that department as well. Now, in terms of user onboarding, we also want to make sure that people actually continue to using the tool and the data quality is so we can trust it. I can go into the usage tab here, and then I can see a couple of metrics here. First of all, I can see how many have submitted their timesheet and approved it, and how many timesheets are open. And we can see in the current week, a couple of timesheets, quite a lot of timesheet is open. This is expected because people are still timesheeting until the end of the week. And I can see somebody in February forgot to submit their timesheet. I might want to follow up on that. And then we got this activity score here, who tells us, well, who is it who are not actually using the tool, and we can reach out to those people and ask them if they need any help, any extra training, or anything to follow up on it. I can see here there is within the consultant area, there's quite a lot of people who don't know how to use it. And then we got a graph here telling us when did people last use the tool. So this is people who used it within today, basically, yesterday. And then you can see there's a few people who actually used it over a week ago. And we might want to follow up on those people as well. Now, if you ever need help to know what goes on in here, you can click on the help tab here. And there's a couple of sections where you can both put your own data in here, or you can just, the user can click the video. A video starts out and explaining how the tools work. And you can put your own video in here, so it explains it in terms of your processes. There's also a guide, an FAQ, and a means of support that you can direct to your own support page first, and maybe to us afterwards, to give the users a good experience. Now, when we have all this data in here, then I can go to the PPM system. I just jump over here and get into one of the projects that people have been timesheeting on, and I'll just search out this mobile banking project. And then you can see the timeline here that the project manager planned out with all the tasks in it, all the phases, all the tasks, and the people assigned to it. And now people have timesheeted, so I can click here and update time. And then it pulls all the new data, updates the tool, and then I can see that the both the progress and the actual work is updated with the latest timesheets. I can just make it big there so you can easily see it. And we can see that business case accessories was actually 70% complete, and there was also registered a lot of time on the sign-off tasks here, even though I didn't actually assign anybody on it.
Christian, we have one question. Is the autofilling related to your calendar?
This
was in the beginning.
Yes. So the autofilling of the time registrations is something we have it on the roadmap to fill it out by your Outlook calendar, actually. But what you can do is you have a copy week, so you say, well, just give me the same thing as I had last week, and I'll just correct my timesheet from there. You can copy the last week's timesheet. And in terms of that, is there any other questions I should answer right away?
No, you can continue.
Great. Then we are looking into to a couple of new features that we are currently implementing or would like to implement into the tool. There's integrated user guides, so instead of you have to go into the help page, you actually get a walkthrough in the tool explaining people what to do. We got the copy last week function, which is being released this week. Then we will give the people the possibility to do personal tasks. And then we also want to give people the possibility to do more mobile features. So today it's possible to timesheet on your mobile, to create new tasks, assign yourself to new tasks. But you also want them to be able to submit timesheets from the mobile phone and other areas. And then we are sending out project alerts, and we want these project alerts to be more specific. So a project manager can set up an alert and say, please notify me if my project goes over budget. And then we have some other stuff on the backlog here, which is a news section. So you, from a company perspective, can push out news. Now, timesheeting is something a lot of people come across a lot of the time. So being able to send out news in the timesheeting tool is actually quite beneficial, because you're basically reaching everyone in the organization within a week. And then we're also looking into doing more advanced vacation management. So the timesheet managers can go in, sorry, the resource managers can go in and actually control and plan the vacation together with the users. That was all I had for now. I think, is there any other questions? Q&A is a good time to start off with now.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Christian. We have just one clarification question. So if there's any automation in relation to filling out the timesheeting.
Yes, so we have the copy last week function where you basically say, give me the last week and push it into my timesheet. So it's automatically filling out based on the best knowledge it has from previous time registrations.
All right. Yeah, so it seems that we don't have any more questions. We can give it a few seconds more to see if anything pops up. But other than that, Christian and Andrew, you can round things up now.
Yes.
Great. Yeah, happy to answer any final questions if they filter in. But one thank you to the Projectum guys for setting this up. It's actually the first time I've gotten to talk about the implementation in such a way and cause a lot of reflection on my end too. So it was helpful for me. So and I hope the audience got a little bit out of it. And if it's something that they're considering in more detail, again, also happy to talk to them directly or with Projectum. It's my door is open.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. It seems we have no more questions, so I guess all there is to say now is if you want to learn more about Time for Teams, you can go to projectum.com and you can find a page about Time for Teams there, and you can also request a trial so you can try it out for yourself. It's pretty straightforward, so go out and try it out. Other than that, thanks a lot, Andrew. Thanks, Christian, and I think we'll wrap it up.
Great.
Thank you.